Dear students, so today we will discuss regarding small intestine and large intestine. So as we know that we have discussed regarding esophagus and stomach in last classes. So intestine we will discuss. So what is intestine? So intestine is the longest part of the digestive tract. So it is divided into two parts. One is longer part and one is shorter part. So longer in length. So the longer part, which is longer in length, but it is having less distensibility, so due to that it is called as small intestine. And the part which is shorter in length but having more distensibility, it is called as large intestine. So here students may confuse that the which intestinal part is having more length, that is small intestine, and which one is having less shorter in length, so that is large intestine. So you should know the difference between these two things. So next, intestines, why it is clinically also it is so important. So because many of the infections like typhoid, tuberculosis, parasitic infections, roundworm infections, tapeworm infections, diarrhea, dysentery, all are the seat for these all infections occur in the intestine region only. So we will, what is the small intestine parts and its dividation. So we will discuss the things in next slides. So what is small intestine? So small intestine, from where it extends and up to what point it is there. So small intestine extends from the pylorus to the ileocecal junction. So small intestine is starting from pylorus of stomach. As we have seen in the last classes that stomach was having three parts. So it was cardiac part, fundus part, and it was pyloric part. So pyloric part, whatever is there, so it is continuous with small intestine. So here you can see in the diagram also that small intestine is continuous from the pylorus to the ileocecal junction. So length of the small intestine is about 6 meters long. So in a healthy young adult, so the length of the small intestine is about 6 meters long. 6 meters means it may differ from individual to individual. As I told you in the last classes, so regarding the average mean, so a clinical trial will be done. So the length of the some group will be taken, and as per that the average will be taken. So average is around 6 meters. So in any individual it may change up to 6.5 also. If any individual it may be 5.5 also. So length will be little bit up and down. So one thing is important, that the length of the small intestine is greater in males than in the females. Okay, but the greatest or the length is in cadavers, because the tone of the intestine will be gone off in the living body. Okay, so now we will discuss about the parts of the small intestine. So it is again two types. One is upper part and one is lower part. Upper part is fixed and called the duodenum, which measures about 25 centimeter in length, and lower one is lower is mobile part and forming a very long convoluted tube. So the upper 2/5 of the mobile intestine are known as jejunum, and lower 3/5 are known as ileum. Okay, so the structure of the small intestine is adapted for digestion and absorption. So you may ask that why this much of long intestine is needed for an individual. So there are some relevant features, because whenever digestion or the absorption of the food material whatever you are taking, it has to be digested, but for that digestion a very large surface area is needed. So it can be achieved only by the great length of the intestine, and there will be some circular folds of the mucous membrane that will be called as villi and microvilli. So due to that only the absorption or digestion can take place, because if you think that from mouth to this thing rectal region, in a standing position or erect stretcher of the person, there will be around hardly 3 to 4 feet diameter length. So but to increase the surface area, to visit the food items from oral cavity to reach up to the rectum after proper digestion, it is compulsory that there should be a sufficient space or surface to get it digested. So due to that the large surface area, the intestine is having around 6 meters long as small intestine. In that also this is having circular folds of mucous membrane, that is called villi and microvilli. So the circular folds of mucous membrane, that is called plica circularis, or valves of Kerckering, from complete or incomplete circles. So these folds are permanent and are not obliterated by distension. So they begin in the second part of duodenum and become large and closely set below the level of major duodenal papilla. So you should keep in mind that large surface area is responsible for digestion, and in that also villi and microvilli are the factors which are also again increasing the surface area, and it will take little bit more time to get that food digested in the intestine. Okay, so what is intestinal villi we were discussing? So intestinal villi are finger like projections of mucous membrane. So you just remember this thing, that whatever we are discussing about villi, so these intestinal villi are finger like projections of mucous membrane, and they are visible to naked eye also. So they give the surface of the intestinal mucosa a velvety appearance. So you see that whenever we bring a cloth like that is velvet in nature, so there some finger like projections will be there, and they will be smooth in nature, they will not harm. So these are the same that velvet like structure, and this is called intestinal villi. So what they are and how much they are? So they are large in number in the duodenum and jejunum, but are smaller and fewer in the ileum. You just keep in mind that duodenum and jejunum are very high in intestinal villi, but ileum are having very few number and smaller in size. So they vary in density from 10 to 40 per square millimeter and are about 1 to 2 mm long. They also increase the surface area of the small intestine about 8 times. You keep in mind that these intestinal villi are again increasing the surface area of the intestine as 8 times than the normal one. Okay, so next point is intestinal glands or crypts of Leverkuhn. So these are the simple tubular glands distributed over the entire mucosal membrane of the jejunum and ileum. So these are the simple tubular glands distributed over the entire mucous membrane of jejunum and ileum. So they open by a small circular aperture on the surface of mucous membrane between the villi. So they secrete digestive enzymes and mucus. The epithelial cells deep in the crypts show a high level of mitotic activity. So you keep in mind that intestinal glands or crypts of Leverkuhn are simple tubular glands which are distributed over the entire mucous membrane of the jejunum and ileum. They open by small circular apertures on the surface of the mucous membrane in between the villi. So what they do? They secrete digestive enzymes and mucus. Okay. So the important thing is that the proliferated cells gradually move towards the surface to be shed from the tip of the villi, and this happens. This cause the complete epithelial lining of the epithelial intestine is replaced every 2 to 4 days. So this is important. Means what? So you see the upper layer, what is there, means inside the intestine we are discussing, that the proliferated cells which are there already, so they will gradually move towards the surface. So automatically this will shed off, and the next layer will come, and it will replaced by 2 to 4 days. So here the duodenal gland or Berners glands lie in the submucosa. So what are these? These are small compound tubo-lacinar glands which secretes mucus. So these are the duodenal glands. Just you keep in mind, also called as Berners gland. So next we will discuss regarding the lymphatic follicles. So the mucous membrane of the small intestine contains two types of lymphatic follicles, which are solitary lymphatic follicles. They are 1 to 2 mm in diameter and distributed throughout the small and large intestine. So the aggregated lymphatic follicles or Peyer's patches, which form circular or oval patches, are varying in length from 2 to 10 centimeter and containing 10 to 200 follicles. So it should be clear that there are two types of lymphatic follicles. One is solitary lymphatic follicle and another one is aggregated lymphatic follicle. Aggregated lymphatic follicle is also known as Peyer's patches. So solitary lymphatic follicles which are there, they are 1 to 2 mm in diameter, and Peyer's patches are 2 to 10 centimeter in diameter. Okay. So Peyer's patches are largest and most numerous in the ileum and are small, circular and fewer in distal jejunum. So in distal jejunum they are few in number, and both the solitary and aggregated lymphatic follicles are most numerous at puberty, but thereafter they start diminishing in size and number. So although they may persist up to old age also, but they will be less in number as per age increases. So each villus has a central lymph vessel. It is called as lacteal, and lymph from lacteals drain into plexus in the walls of the gut, and from there to the regional lymph nodes. So it is the cycle from where the lymph node is coming, and it has to be collected to the regional lymph nodes. Okay, and the arterial supply of the jejunum and ileum is derived from jejunal and ileal branches of the superior mesenteric artery. The vasa recta are distributed alternatively to opposite sided of the guts. So they run between the serous and muscular cords and give off numerous branches which supply and pierce the muscular cord. And they form a plexus in submucosa, and from this plexus minute branches pass to the glands and villi. So arterial supply is clear. So nerve supply, it is supplied by sympathetic T9 to T11 as well as parasympathetic from vagus nerve, and the nerves from mesenteric plexus of Orbeck containing parasympathetic ganglia between circular and longitudinal muscle cords. Sympathetic nerves are motor to the sphincters and to the muscularis mucosae and inhibitory for peristaltic movements. So what is the function of small intestine? So function of the small intestine comprises digestion and absorption of the digested contents from the fluid. So the parts of the small intestine, what are the small intestine parts? So now we will discuss one by one. Okay, so whatever we have discussed up to now, this was the common anatomy and its feature of the small intestine. So now we will go to the small intestine part by part. So as already we have discussed that there are two part, one is free part and one is fixed part. So whatever fixed part is there, that is duodenum, and it is again 25 centimeter long, and again the movable part which is there, that is divided into two parts, that is jejunum and ileum. So first we will discuss regarding the duodenum term. So the term duodenum is a Latin word, and the word from which is derived, the term is duodekalaktolos. So it means 12 fingers. So the measurement of the duodenum as per Greek, it is 12 fingers long. So in that terminology it has been called as duodenum. So the definition and location. So duodenum is the shortest, widest and most fixed part of the small intestine. So it extends from the pylorus to duodenojejunal flexure. So these are the terms, by that only you can know the what are the joints taking place. So you see at the point duodenojejunal flexure. So especially whenever duodenum and jejunum are uniting over there, so it will be called a duodenojejunal flexure. So it is curved around the head of the pancreas in the form of letter of C. So in diagram also you can see that it is a form of C. The duodenum lies above the level of umbilicus, opposite first, second and third lumbar vertebra. So if you will see L1, L2, L3, so it will be opposite to that, and it will be above to the umbilicus, so in the form of letter C. So this is definition of the and location of the duodenum. So again duodenum is divided into four parts, and you keep in mind that there will be no such differentiation. For our easiness of the study, some imaginary lines, and as per the anatomical value of that intestine, we have divided it into different parts, we have named it, and we have just classified it. So inside the abdomen, whenever you are going to open the abdomen, nowhere you will find that this is clear cut, that up to here this is duodenum is written. So it is for our understanding. So duodenum is 25 centimeter long. So now we are discussing regarding the 25 centimeter, how it is and what it is. So it is divided into four parts. So first one, second one, third one and fourth one. So first part is superior part. First one is superior one. This is 5 centimeter long. Second one is descending part. So it is coming down. So it is called as descending part. It is 7.5 centimeter. Third part is horizontal plane. So it is 10 centimeter in size. And fourth one is ascending part. So this is 2.4 centimeter, 2.5 centimeter in length. So you see totally it is coming around coming up to 25 centimeter in length. So in diagram also you can see that here you can see that L1, L2, L3. So what are you parts you are seeing over here? So 1, 2, 3 and 4. So one part is superior duodenal flexure. This is 5 centimeter. So whatever you are seeing number 2, this is second part or descending part. This one is 7.5 centimeter. Third part is horizontal part, which is 10 centimeter. And fourth part what you are seeing over here, this is ascending part. So this is 2.5 centimeter in length. So now it is clear, I think. If you want, you can see one more time this diagram. So whatever flexor you are seeing means flexor is just a turn wherever it is taking round shape. So this is superior duodenal flexor above, and downwards you can see inferior duodenal flexor. I think it is clear now. So here peritoneal relations. So the duodenum is mostly retroperitoneal and fixed. So the important point is that duodenum is fixed and it is free at two ends where it is suspended by folds of peritoneum, and that's why it is in that particular part it is mobile. So anteriorly duodenum is only partly covered with peritoneum, so that's why it is called as retroperitoneal. Okay, so you can see the correct position of the duodenum in this diagram. So how it is attached, and how the pancreas is fixing in that C-shaped duodenum. So you can see this diagram clearly showing. So next we will move. Okay, so now we are inside the small intestine. In small intestine we are discussing regarding duodenum. In duodenum also we are discussing about the first part of the duodenum. Okay, so this is first part which was around 5 centimeter in length. Okay, so the first part begins at the pylorus, which is connected to stomach, and passes backwards, upwards and to the right to meet the second part at superior duodenal flexure. You can see in diagram also. So it is of 5 centimeter. Proximal 2.5 centimeter is movable and distal 2.5 centimeter is fixed. So this is important over here. And the relations of the first part of the duodenum: anteriorly it is related to quadrate lobe of liver and gallbladder. Posteriorly it is related to gastroduodenal artery, bile duct and portal vein. So in the diagram you can see the relations of the first part of the duodenum. Okay, so superiorly first part of the duodenum is in relation with epiploic foramen, and inferiorly it is in connection with the head and neck of the pancreas. Okay, so now the second part of the duodenum. So the second part of the duodenum is around 7.5 centimeter long, and it begins at the superior duodenal flexure, passes downwards to reach the lower border of the third lumbar vertebra. Okay, so its relations: it is also retroperitoneal and fixed. Its anterior surface is covered with peritoneum, and at the middle part it is not covered with peritoneum. So visceral relations of the second part of the duodenum: anteriorly it is again related to right lobe of the liver, transverse colon, root of the transverse mesocolon, small intestine. So posteriorly, anterior surface of the right kidney, right renal vessels, right edge of the inferior vena cava, and right psoas muscle, psoas major muscle. Okay, so medially second part of the duodenum is connected to head of the pancreas and the bile duct. So we just have a look over the diagrams, by that you can easily understand the things. And now third part, which is 10 centimeter long, and it begins at the inferior duodenal flexure on the right side of the lower border of the third lumbar vertebra. So you just keep in mind. So peritoneal relations: it is also a retroperitoneal organ and is fixed. Anterior surface is covered with peritoneum. It is also not having any peritoneum in the median plane. So visceral relations: it is anteriorly it is related to superior mesenteric vessels, roots of the mesentery. Posteriorly right ureter will come, and right psoas major muscle. and the superiorly it is connected to head of the pancreas with uncinate process, and inferiorly with the coils of jejunum. So this was regarding third part of the duodenum, and now we will discuss regarding the fourth part of the duodenum. So this is the part which is 2.5 centimeter long, and visceral it is also retroperitoneal, and visceral relations, it is anteriorly it is related to transverse colon, transverse mesocolon, lesser sac and stomach. Posteriorly it is connected to left sympathetic chain, left renal artery, left gonadal artery, and inferior mesenteric vein. So in diagrams you can see these things easily. Okay. So the arterial supply of the duodenum, it develops from the foregut and partly from the midgut. So the opening of the bile duct into the second part of the duodenum represents the junction of the foregut and the midgut. So the duodenum is supplied by the superior pancreato-duodenal artery. So you keep in mind that superior in pancreato-duodenal artery is supplying, and in the below part it is supplied by the inferior pancreato-duodenal artery. So you can see that some circulating arteries will be there. So better to see in all the things in the diagram of complete blood circulation, arterial blood circulation. So venous circulation, venous drainage is the in the splenic and superior mesenteric and portal veins. So lymphatic drainage is in the pancreato-duodenal nodes. Nerve supply is by sympathetic nerve from thoracic 9th and 10th, and parasympathetic from the vagus. Histology. So you go through one's histology part. If anything is there, then we will discuss. So it is there. So now we will go to directly Meckel's diverticulum. So it is called as diverticulum ileae. So Meckel's diverticulum is persistent proximal part of the vitalo-intestinal duct which is present in the embryo and which normally disappears during the 6th week of intrauterine life. So it is interesting over here. You see what is Meckel's diverticulum. So it is little bit important. So you have to keep in mind, and in practical also it is important, practical field whenever you will come to the field. So Meckel's diverticulum. So Meckel's diverticulum is the persistent proximal part of the vitalo-intestinal duct which is present in the embryo and which normally disappears during the 6th week of intrauterine life. So it occurs in 2% subjects only. Actually it has to disappear in the 6th week of the intrauterine life only, but if it persists there are chances of only 2%. So usually it is of 2 inch or 5 centimeter, and it is situated about 2 feet or 60 centimeter proximal to the ileocecal wall attached to the antimesenteric border of the ileum. So its caliber is equal to that of the ileum, and its apex may be free or may be attached to umbilicus. So this is regarding Meckel's diverticulum. So what is Meckel's diverticulum? Why it came in this? Because the clinically Meckel's diverticulum is a significant thing because it may cause intestinal obstruction, and occasionally it may have small regions of gastric mucosa. Acute inflammation of the diverticulum may produce symptoms that resembles those of appendicitis. So this is important because it may confuse to surgeon that what is Meckel's diverticulum and what is appendicitis. So it is quite important that if an infection occurs to the Meckel's diverticulum, it may be false diagnosed with appendicitis also. So it is important clinically. And next thing, it may be involved in other diseases similar to those of intestines also. So you can see in this diagram, so foregut you can see, midgut loop you can see, yolk sac you can see, so vitellointestinal duct you can see over here. So what happens, there will be a Meckel's diverticulum which is attached to umbilicus or may not be attached. So this is the clinically importance of Meckel's diverticulum. So it may come for 2 marks, you just keep in mind. Okay, I think we have completed small intestine over here. So if anybody is having any doubt, so then we will discuss in the next class. Thank you.